Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Former CEO of the now bankrupt FTX, headquartered in the Bahamas, has been arrested. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Thursday, 15th December 2022. Details when we return.
Win prizes weekly with the Dutch Lady Christmas promotion. You can win hampers, kitchen appliances, and much more. Here's how to win. Visit our Facebook and Instagram pages weekly to retrieve the recipe. Follow the recipe. Submit the final dish via email at dlchristmaspromotion@gmail.com, along with proof of purchase of Dutch Lady UHT or 410 evaporated milk. Recipes will be judged based on the display. Winners will be selected each week to battle for the grand prize in a live cooking show hosted by the creative chef. Look out for the Dutch Lady Santa Claus at supermarkets island-wide. The promotion runs from November 16th to December 21st, 2022. And once again, we'd like to congratulate the winner of last year's Dutch Lady Christmas promotion, Miss Brianna Bihari. Dutch Lady Milk, proudly distributed by Hubbard's Agency.
Welcome back. The former CEO of FTX has been arrested. FTX filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in November. Details in this ZNS News report.
A dramatic turn of events for former FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried, a late afternoon release from the Office of the Attorney General confirming that SBF has been arrested following formal notification from the United States that it has filed criminal charges and is likely to request Fried's extradition. Consequently, the AG deemed it appropriate to hold SBF into custody in line with the country's Extradition Act. Now, once a formal request is made for extradition, the Bahamas intends to process it promptly, the statement further reads. Responding to SBF's arrests was Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, the Honorable Philip Davis, who notes that the Bahamas and the United States have a shared interest in holding accountable all individuals associated with FTX who may have betrayed the public's trust and broken the law. He adds that while the United States is pursuing criminal charges against SBF individually, the Bahamas will continue its own regulatory and criminal investigations into FTX's collapse with the continued cooperation of its law enforcement and regulatory partners in the U.S. and elsewhere. Again, Sam Bankman-Fried, former CEO of FTX, has been arrested here in the Bahamas.
In other news, the Concerned Citizens Movement, CCM, under the leadership of Premier Mark Brantley, retains office in Nevis after Monday's election with 3 of the 5 seats. Andre Huey of SKN Newsline reports.
Preliminary count indicates that the Concerned Citizens Movement, the CCM, under the leadership of Mark Brantley, will form the new Nevis Island administration. Mr. Oakland Peets, supervisor of elections in St. Kitts and Nevis, announced at the end of the preliminary count that the CCM had won 3 of 5 seats. The Nevis Reformation Party, NRP, which previously had 1 seat, gained another in Nevis 4, which was won by its leader, Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge. In the constituency of Nevis 1, St. Paul's, Mr. Spencer Brand of CCM won by just 29 votes, with 631 votes over the Nevis Reformation Party's NRP's Ms. J.D. Keynes 604. In the constituency of Nevis 2, St. John's, Mr. Mark Brantley won 1,313 votes over the NRP's Dr. Patricia Bartlett's 1,166 votes, and Mr. Samuel Keynes of the Moral Restoration Movement, MRM, won 17 votes. In the constituency of Nevis 3, St. George's, Mr. Eric Evelyn of the CCM won 736 votes over Mr. Ron Isles of the NRP 311. In constituency number 4, St. James's, Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge of NRP won 750 votes over Mr. Alexis Jeffers of the CCM with 742 votes. And Mrs. Patricia Mills Jeffers of the MRM won 11 votes. In the Nevis 5 St. Thomas's constituency, Mrs. Cleone Stapleton Simmons of the NRP won with 712 votes over the CCM's Miss Latoya Jones with 508. At the end of the count, which ended in the wee hours of Tuesday morning, CCM leader Mark Brantley spoke on Vaughan Radio about the election victory and suggested the results were closer than expected.
My thanks to the people of Nevis for continuing to repose their trust and confidence in the concerned citizens involvement to leave the island for the next 5 years. I think the victory in St. John's for me would have decided the election. We have a reduced majority, and we have lost a stalwart and a hard-working, committed servant of the people in Alexis Jeffers, who fell by just 8 votes. But I would like to congratulate the Honorable Eric Evelyn, the Honorable Spencer Brandt for coming through, and also to congratulate the Honorable Janice Daniel Hodge and the Honorable Clement Staples Simmer for their showing. Let me also take the time to reach out to my colleague, the Honorable Latoya Jones, for her excellent performance, and of course, those who were not successful on the opposition side, Dr. Patricia Bartlett, Ms. J.D. Kane, and Mr. Ron Iles. I think that we had a peaceful election, so that our people were able to go out and vote and to make the choice that they so desire. And at the end of the day, we will have to evaluate these results and seek to determine why they were what they are, but notwithstanding, we're grateful to God that we have a result and that we can now settle down.
Tuesday was declared a national holiday, as is customary after an election. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister is constrained from laying the Firearms Users License Audit Report in Parliament. This following a decision by the court to grant an injunction that was filed by former Police Commissioner Gary Griffith. Attorney General Reginald Amor has said that the state will appeal the ruling. However, Griffith isn't worried. TV6's Alicia Boucher has more in this report.
In the civil case of Gary Griffith against the National Security Council, the injunction was granted in favor of Griffith, who is the claimant in the matter. Griffith filed for it on the premise that he never had an opportunity to respond to any of the findings pertaining to him in the FUL audit report and was not interviewed during the investigation into the issuance of FULs under the police service. He was sitting in the post of police commissioner at the time. Following the ruling by the High Court on Tuesday morning, Attorney General Reginald Amor Senior Counsel issued a statement pinpointing that the injunction prevents the Prime Minister, who is also head of the National Security Council, from laying an executive summary of the FUL audit report of the Firearms Audit Committee or any part of the said report in the Parliament. Amor gave an assurance that the proper process was followed, as he stated that Griffith was informed that consideration was being given as to what steps should be taken to allow people who were adversely affected by the findings to respond to the allegations before the report is laid in the Parliament. The AG also indicated that a commitment was given to Griffith that unless that procedure was undertaken, none of the contents of the report would be laid. As such, Amor said, quote, "The Office of the Attorney General advises that an immediate appeal is being filed urgently to correct errors made by this ruling," unquote. However, Griffith has a different take on the ruling of the High Court. How do you feel about that decision?
Well, it was expected. The fact of the matter is that the court is not influenced in any way or could be manipulated by politicians. And I think the court did what was required. It was obvious. Yet again, the Attorney General, the audacity of this individual, he continues to make unforced error after unforced error. To state that due process took place. How could due process take place when it is that there was an audit committed, decided upon, by civilians? They then appoint civilians to then investigate an arm of the police service, and then they did not speak to the person who was in command of the police service at the time.
According to Griffith, when the National Security Council submitted a report prepared by its audit committee to the Police Service Commission, it suggested that the report was complete.
How can it have been completed when you never spoke to me in the first place? And then the Prime Minister boasting that he wants to take it to Parliament. Note, Parliament is the one place you can go hide or lie and not be sued.
As for the immediate appeal signaled by the AG,
do you still feel as confident as it goes to the next level?
Well, definitely it is as clear as day.
Griffith also plans to take up the issue of the Order of Merit list with Acting Police Commissioner Erla Christopher, as he maintains that the list was not withdrawn by the former Police Service Commission, which was led by Bliss Seepersad.
Which means that one individual signed it on her own and she broke the law. And I would expect immediately now the new Acting Commissioner of Police to have that individual pulled in And if she is arrested and she admits that someone influenced or harassed or intimidated her, that person also should be arrested. I intend to do what is required to ensure that there's no sense of democratic dictatorship in this country.
If Christopher doesn't act on the complaint, Griffith says there are other options, including issuing a complaint to the Police Service Commission, the Director of Public Prosecutions, and even the Police Complaints Authority. Ulla Christopher is acting in the post of Police Commissioner while McDonald Jacob is on vacation. Alicia Boucher, TV6 News.
In the meantime, the families of several police officers in Trinidad and Tobago who were killed in the line of duty have been receiving compensation. Confirmation of this comes from acting leader of government business Paula Gopi-Skoon in the Senate on Tuesday. TTT News has more.
Responding to a question from the opposition, Mrs. Gopi-Skoon said this information was provided from the acting police commissioner, McDonald Jacob.
Legal personal representatives of police officers who were killed in the line of duty have received appropriate compensation packages.
In February, National Security Minister Fitzgerald Hines confirmed in the Senate that the policy for families of those killed in the line of duty was still in effect. He had stated that the ministry continued to be guided by the policy approved by the cabinet in 2016.
Scotia Group Jamaica earns $11 billion profit for 2021 to 2022. Javon Keys of TVJ Business Day reports.
Scotia Group Jamaica earned a net profit of $11.7 billion. That's 35% or $3 billion more than the 2020-2021 financial year. CEO of Scotia Group Jamaica, Audrey Tugwell Henry, says this was driven by improvements in core business lines, including loans.
And our total loans increased year over year by 14%, which is a real contribution from both our retail as well as our corporate and commercial business lines.
Total revenues for the year amounted to $45.9 billion, 12.9% more than last year. Commercial loans in particular grew by 7%. The company's Senior Vice President of Corporate and Commercial Banking, Morris Nelson, says this was due to a few factors.
Post-COVID, we're seeing a strong recovery in the economy. There are several projects that were on hold where customers were adopting a wait-and-see approach. Those projects are now moving and the funding that was committed are being disbursed. The second area of growth that is driving loans would be in the working capital segment. I believe it's well understood in terms of inflation. There are higher prices for inputs, and several businesses continue to experience supply chain issues. And so that means more funding for inventory, raw materials that they have to maintain.
Scotia's mortgage book also improved for the year, up by 28%. The financial institution also says total deposits for the year were valued at $397.2 billion, $18 billion more than the 2020-2021 financial year. For the Business Day, I'm Javon Keys.
The Food Fair Shop and Win promotion is back, better than ever. We are giving away $30,000 in prizes with the promotional activities you know and love, like find the misplaced items, spin the wheel, and other exciting in-store activities. You can win hams, turkeys, vouchers, cooking gas from Sol, and lunch packages from the Creative Chef. The promotion runs from November 16th to December 23rd, 2022. Food Fair, where you can fill your baskets without emptying your pockets.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.